Hi, it's Karen from the Homeschool Bunch, and I am here with our Where in the World segment, South Korea. We went to South Korea the very beginning of 2012. My husband had a job over there with his company building drill ships. Now, this was the first time that we had taken the kids um, anywhere overseas. Micah had just been diagnosed with autism. I had never even been on an airplane. I had never been out of the country. And so this was a very new experience for us. If you're sharing this with your kids, here's a map. If you look on the bottom right corner of South Korea, you'll find Ulsan. Ulsan. That is where we lived. If you see up where Seoul is, and Incheon, where the little airplane is, that's where we flew into. Now, we lived on a compound, and it had this cool playground that the kids first found right when we moved there. It was right down the hill from our apartment. This compound had a few bungalows, maybe 10, but then the rest were apartments, and we lived in an apartment, which was great for us because we had friends that were right underneath us and on top of us every time. We always had some little friends that lived in the same apartment building or next door to us. And here, the South Korean flag was over the playground. This was right outside a little clubhouse that was really neat that we could meet friends at. And what was good about the compound was everyone spoke English, so they helped us out a lot. This is when we went to South Korea, we wanted to find a church, and this is the church that we found to go to at first. They had an international service and just welcomed us with open arms. Some of the people spoke English and some didn't, and you just found your way to communicate however you could. And they were very gracious in that manner. We also were able to start a children's church during that international service while we were there. And here, the first Easter that we were there, we actually went in and worshiped with the regular worship service. And they invited us to sing a worship song with them. I was sitting back with Micah and JC and my husband were up with the group and sang with that group. A lot of them were ESL teachers, English as a second language teachers. If you know someone who's coming out of college or if you have a child that's in high school, that's a great opportunity. That's a whole nother video. Here's some pictures that were right down from our compound. Whenever there's a holiday, they always really go out with decorations. This was outside of a McDonald's. And this is kind of the scene that you would see in town all the time. And you see in the bottom, there's a little scooter for McDonald's. They actually delivered McDonald's to your home if you wanted to. We were there about the time when Gangnam Style came out. This is just a picture of JC with one of the advertisements that we thought was just cute because he tried to copy him, but it had already been big in South Korea. And then when we come back, America was really getting into it. This is one of the beaches. What's neat about South Korea is you could be going and climbing and hiking and then go an hour down the road and there's a beach. This one actually is called Black Pebble Beach, and there's actually black pebbles. There's no sand. It's all black pebbles. So it was a neat thing to see because we had never seen anything like that, and we went there several times. Um, and people would go all year round to the beach. You never. Sometimes people would go and camp. If you see way over in the distance, there's a tent, and families would go camping right there on the beach, and would have a good family time that way. The Koreans were really great about getting outside and staying active and staying out in nature and learning more about it. And we just jumped on that bandwagon and had a lot of fun doing that with a lot of friends of ours that we had made. There was also a place called Grand Park. When I talk about families getting outside, you didn't see movie theaters were over there and they were popular, but you didn't see them packed like the parks. And this one was Grand Park. And if you see these things, they were inflated and they were some kind of thick, rubbery material, and the kids could go jumping on them. And my kids loved it. You just took your shoes off and you went jumping all day. Um, this was actually a really busy day. This park was just acres and acres and had walking tracks and it had different segments. This was actually a windmill that had flowers planted all around it, and each season they would change out the different flowers. It was a great place to ride bikes. It was a great place. They even had several areas that had playgrounds, slides. The kids absolutely adored it, and we miss it like crazy. This was one place we always loved to go. Here's another part of the park where you could actually walk across a stream. They had stones where you could carefully go across. This is Mike with our youngest son, Micah, when he was little, doing that. Um, and like I said, they actually, even around that stream, they had a place that was a walkway, a walks place where there were stones where you could walk and it would massage your feet the way that the rocks were set. This is another part of the park. We took his scooter that day. As he got older, we had a bike that we had gotten and he was using it. It had a track that you could, several tracks that you could ride bikes and scooters. There was one that they even designed it to look like a miniature city. It had traffic lights. The road was actually painted like a street. It even had a railroad crossing, a pretend railroad crossing. It had a bridge. So it was one that Micah just absolutely loved. Here he is jumping again at the park, and with some of the kids. And luckily, one good thing was in Korea, everybody was so friendly, and the kids especially were really friendly. This is one of the slides, and then if you look over at the right, they had a rock wall that you could climb, and you just climb up the rock wall, run over, go down the slide, go back up, go over up the rock wall, go back down the slide. So it kept them active. Here is some of the street. If you see the traffic lights, they didn't light up, but they were just. It was just a really neat area that Micah was just enthralled with, and that was where we had to go every time. Here he is on one of the park benches. You could sit and take a rest. There was even places on the grass where people would just bring us picnic lunch and enjoy the day out there. It was always so beautiful out at this park. The next area that I'm going to show you, if you look at the distance, that is what they call Hyundai Department Store, which is just a big department store, huge floors galore. I think there's 5 or 6 floors. But then right next to it was another park, and it had a gazebo. It had little bitty ponds all around it. It had a little walking trail. And here we're back at Grand Park. One thing about Korea, the kids, both my boys were blonde-headed, and the Korean people always wanted to come up and visit with them. The kids especially wanted to practice their English with the kids. Here's JC. We always used to laugh and say he had a paparazzi because he met a stranger. So lots of times the preteen and teenage girls would want to come up and practice their English with him, and he would talk all day with them. Here's another where some kids had come and found JC and started up a conversation with him, and they started hanging out there at the park. And this next part, there's another group of, this was when we first moved there. We had not been there but maybe 2 months. And these girls, I bet they sat for 30 minutes talking with JC. And they even thought it was crazy because I had studied up on K-pop, which is the Korean pop music and pop culture. We're going to have another segment next week. I hope this gives you a little bit of a thought of how it is in Korea. Thank you for turning in, and we hope you stay awesome, and we'll be back with more facts.